Welcome back, everybody, to the Bros and Cons podcast, where today we'll be talking about the final episode of season 1 of The Last of Us, streaming on HBO.
I can't.
To get us
over.
I know, I can't handle it. To start us off, Vic, I want you to hit us with some fat stats.
All right, here we go with those fat stats. So they got 8.2 million people for episode 9, which is insane.
That's amazing.
The first episode had 4.7 million viewers.
Mm-hmm.
So they nearly doubled their weekly viewership, which is just nuts. And also, it's a big deal that they hit 8.2 million yesterday because it was the same night as the Oscars. And they still retain that viewership. That's nuts.
That's amazing, dude.
Yeah. So that's crazy. So overall, they had a 75% increase from episode 1 to the final episode.
That's so cool. I think that word of mouth was huge with this.
Yeah.
Because again, and I can't emphasize this enough, this show wasn't just for fans of the video game.
No, it's crazy to see how it's become like something everyone can enjoy now.
Mm-hmm.
Like, you know, people that'll probably never touch a game control in their lives are now just invested in this story, and that's amazing.
Absolutely. I can't wait to see like what this looks like for season 2.
Mm-hmm.
It's great. I think, we'll get into it.
I think it's going to grow even more because I think as a whole, they've just from the premiere, I think it's just millions and millions more than 8.2 million for sure. I think it was, don't quote me on it, but I think it was 40 million people have watched the first episode.
That's crazy cool, man.
It's nuts.
That's nuts. All right. I want to talk about the opening where we get another little surprise cameo from Ashley Johnson, the original Ellie.
Oh, that was so weird for me.
It was, like, talk about it.
Oh, like, because you see her from behind and you can hear her, and like instantly, like her voice is just like you recognize it anywhere. I could pick that out of a crowd any day. Yeah,
it's like grunts through the forest. And you're like Ashley Johnson.
I have to point out a Reddit comment because someone said the second she grunted, I recognized her voice instantly, and then someone below said, "Imagine having an iconic grunt." Because that's what she does.
Exactly.
You know, like you pick it up, like it instantly just took me back to the game. Mm-hmm. Like it's so ingrained in my mind as that character. I can't hear anyone else. So it was like jarring. Like it was, I don't want to say it was bad. It wasn't at all. Like it was amazing to see her play this character, like to see it come full circle. Like to see her, the original actress for Ellie, playing Ellie's mom. It's like kind of like poetic and just like symbolic and like handing off that character, and so cool, but just so jarring. I could not. It was this weird disconnect. I'm like, that's kind of her face, but not really, you know. Like, I mean, I've seen Ashley Johnson in other things too, but something about seeing her in this world playing this character was just very interesting. Like, I loved it.
I want to emphasize too that between her performance in this episode and Troy Baker's performance in the previous episode, like not only are they incredible voice actors with iconic voices, because even in last episode, I don't know if I mentioned this, but there was a line that Troy Baker said that you could hear Joel.
Yeah, a little bit.
It's like the timbre of Joel. But they're just good actors.
They're so good.
I want to see them both in so many more things.
Yeah. Oh, I do too. Yeah, and I think they might actually start being potentially in more projects after this that are not necessarily voice.
Yeah, I think Ashley Johnson's I think she's a regular on a TV show.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, she's
right now.
Yeah, she is. She's on quite a few things, and I don't know if Troy Baker does much in terms of like film acting. He's always been more of a voice actor guy, but Ashley Johnson stays pretty busy, and she was on like 6 or 7 seasons of, I forget the name of the show. It was a network show. Yeah. She's already very well established as a screen actor too. Like a full working screen actor. I wouldn't be surprised if she just continues to do a lot.
Let me tell you about how tense I was during this opening scene. Because as a fan of the video game, you immediately connect with Ashley Johnson's character.
Mhm.
I feared for her life, not just because she's a human, but because she's Ashley Johnson. And I've got problems with things crawling that shouldn't be crawling, and that runner or stalker, whatever it was, running full speed at her is disturbing.
Mm-hmm.
And her performance here is just great because it's not just fear. It's like, I feel like you see a little bit of Ellie in her in that moment, because it's just this switch. She turns into an animal wanting to survive, and it was amazing.
I mean, she did all, like, Ellie is her. I mean, every bit of Ellie is her. I mean, when she was stabbing it to death, I'm like, that's Ellie's
Ellie.
Mannerisms, that's Ellie stabbing a stalker. Like, it was so amazing to see, like, and to give her that opportunity. Like, I felt it was just very respectful.
Yeah, it was a little kiss on the forehead to all the fans of the video game, and a respectful handshake to Ashley Johnson. Did not expect for there to be just a wet pile of baby on the ground when the infected rolled off of her.
I think I was like, that was fast.
Because
you compare that to, like, Game of Thrones, House of Dragon, that just happened less than a year ago, and it was like the most, from what people are saying, like the realistic, brutal bursting ever. And then this is just like, okay, there she is.
Well, to me, it's all of your body using up all of its energy to tense. You're tensing in this attack.
Exactly.
And so it makes sense to me that, like, her water had already broken, and it made sense to me that, like, everything in her body was tensed up, and she pushed that thing out like there's no tomorrow.
Right. Yeah, no, it makes perfect sense. It's not unrealistic to me at all.
No, I loved it. And it's solved a mystery about how Ellie became immune. I thought that was a really interesting tidbit that they decided to put in.
Yeah, I want to talk about that a little bit.
Yes.
So, because I keep hearing two things, even in the podcast, they didn't necessarily acknowledge that made her immune. It was just proving that she was immune.
So this is the first time too where I haven't listened to the podcast before. I fell asleep right after, because I watched it real late, and then I just went night. Gotcha. So usually I watch it and then I listen to the podcast. So that's interesting. They say that it just proves that she's immune, but I think that this is why she's immune.
You think just because she was exposed at such a young age, she's immune? Like, that made her immune?
I think it has something to do with the fact that it wasn't her that was infected early. It was her mom, and she was connected via placenta. I think it has, I don't know, that's just my theory, that it was like biologically something happened there.
So if that's the case, then this would be easy to replicate then.
But the only person who would know is Marlene.
Right. Well, she's dead now.
She did. So spoiler alert, everyone. Marlene is dead. That's what I'm saying. It's like,
I don't know. Like, I enjoy the mystery of it.
I do too. I just think that that's my personal ideas about it. And I do think that there's a possibility that someone else is immune, but a lot of people died during this apocalypse.
Yep.
And there's probably, statistically, there probably aren't a lot of people that tested the theory of their immunity.
Right.
You know what I mean?
Themselves.
Exactly. Or they didn't get bit.
Yeah, that too.
You know what I mean? It's just, that's just my theory. No. And I do agree with you that if that is true, there are probably more immune people out there.
Yeah.
But what are the chances of all of the immune also getting bitten and also knowing that they're immune?
Right.
You know what I mean?
There's all these, like, secondary conditions to know that you can be fully known that you're actually immune and replicate this kind of cure.
Exactly. Because Marlene didn't know that Ellie was immune until Ellie got bit.
Right.
Let's talk about best friends shooting each other in the head.
Dark.
Merle Dandridge, her performance in this part was so good. That's not something you often see, because you often see blubbery mess. Like, I won't do it to you. No, you got to do it to me. You got to kill me. We made a promise to each other. But this was just like, she wasn't going to do it.
No.
And she had to do it quick. She had to come into that room quick so that she would do it. Yeah. And that to me was the most realistic.
Yeah. Like she didn't even give herself time to hesitate. She just decided, I'm going to do it, and I have to do it without thinking.
Exactly.
Yeah. Which was just brutal.
Brutal, but realistic and really good.
Yeah. I also like that they added that they knew each other their entire
lives.
Their
whole lives.
Like they must have been just
fucking
up together.
Heartbreaking.
Yeah. It's crazy.
So fucking heartbreaking.
Yeah. Like, because we knew they knew each other, but we didn't know in what capacity. So it just added another layer to this whole story, that they were probably grew up next door to each other or went to school together or whatnot,
Exactly. Yeah. Really, really brutal, really heartbreaking, but such a good addition to this story. Probably one of my favorite additions to this story that they've done this season. Like something new, something added, was this sequence.
I just remembered, I'm so glad that some stupid fan theory ended up not being true.
Oh, what was it?
Said it was leaked and it was going around, and it was the stupidest thing I've ever heard. And I'm like, if this is true, I'm so upset. Apparently there was this theory floating around that said Anna was also part of the Fireflies, which she seems to have been. Yes, that's true. But she was a nurse with the Fireflies, which according to the game or one of the comics, I think is also true. But it said that she was experimented on and given Ellie like through in vitro with the hope that she would produce an immune baby for a cure. And I was just like, this is ridiculous.
That's too much, dude.
That's a lot. Yeah.
Like in vitro fertilization anyway is like a huge intense process. And so for them to experiment on people decades after, or like years at least after an apocalypse, I just come on, guys.
Nothing about it made sense.
We love a good fan theory, but that's too much. I'm glad that they weren't like experimental babies.
I'm like, I can't handle this if this is this is cheese.
I don't see either of these. I don't see the showrunner or the writers being like, yeah, let's go with that. Fucking
right. Yeah.
Nope. No. There. Sorry.
I thought it was so ridiculous too.
That's a little much. Moving forward a little bit, I want to talk about Ellie and some more bigger changes to this episode, because I do feel like this episode adheres really, really closely to the video game, except for the opening and some conversations between Ellie and Joel.
Yeah.
So Ellie's demeanor is not something that we've seen from her before, and it's a direct result of the happenings of last episode.
Yeah, I think they did a great job of showing how much that changed her as a person. I don't want to say there's a sadness to her, but there's like, it's kind of like a piece has been taken from her as a person. Yeah. And she's just struggling to hold it together.
When we've seen Ellie distracted before, it's because she's distracted because something excites her.
Exactly.
Something ignites in her and she goes off and finds whatever it is. But here we're seeing her distracted by her own thoughts, which isn't something that we've seen before.
It's not. No, like one line that really got me was, and it was in the game too, but her entire delivery of it here was good, where Joel says, you seem kind of like out of it today. And she says, I'm sorry. And that just, something about that line just got me, because it's like it was so quiet. Well, and it's like she feels guilty for not being herself. But yeah, so that really stuck out to me. So it's like she knows she's different. She knows that she's lost something, And I think it's also because they're moving close to the Fireflies too.
Yeah,
like, there's just so many things going on in her head.
To me, it didn't read as guilt. To me, I mean, there was some in there, but to me, the biggest thing was her saying sorry, which is something that I've done too, is just trying to move the conversation away from where Joel wants it to go.
That's true. Yeah.
And so it's a deflection, which again isn't something that we've seen from Ellie before. So it was jarring. It made me uneasy.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah.
But one moment that we see where she does turn back into the old Ellie a little bit is the famous giraffe scene that they replicated in this show.
I am so happy they put it in.
Me too. I didn't know if I knew that they would do it, but I didn't know if it would make sense in the context of the show, which is a lot more grounded, a lot more realistic, but they really pulled it off.
I'm really glad that they put it in. As soon as I saw the monkeys in the fall episode, I'm like, okay, the giraffe's going to be there.
Yeah.
So I'm really, it's like a personal favorite scene of mine. I think it's kind of necessary. I thought maybe they'd move it around a little bit or something like that, and maybe like, I don't know, use a different animal or something like that. But I'm really glad that they didn't, because giraffes are fucking awesome. So
Vic 2023.
Another little tidbit of trivia is that he actually did use a real giraffe. It was not CGI.
Ooh.
And his name is, I might mispronounce this, but it's Nabo.
A good boy.
Yeah. So
they used a real good boy for the scene. They used
a real good boy.
How fucking cool for everyone on set to be able to do that with a real giraffe.
Also, another change that I loved about that scene is that they actually fed the giraffe. Like, because they just petted it in the game. Like, if you've ever fed a giraffe, you know how fun it is.
It's so fun. So they covered that iconic scene, which they've been really good about making sure that the iconic scenes are in the show.
They really have.
But a big departure was Joel opening up, which the conversation between him and Ellie that we see was a complete departure from the games, but one that I feel was necessary.
I agree. No, it was, I think it might have been one of the best additions that they made to the TV show version. It wasn't just him like kind of opening up. It was like him telling Ellie his lowest point in his entire life. And
it wasn't painful for him to talk about necessarily. It was just, I'm going to lay this out for you so that you understand where I'm coming from. And
I think she did. And I love that there was kind of a moment between them when she says, I guess time heals all wounds. And he says it wasn't time.
In the hands of lesser actors, I think that writing could be really, really cheesy.
Yeah.
But the two of them handled that really well.
So well. It was the moments that followed that made those lines good, because there's just that eye contact moment of silence between the two of them where he's like visually telling her what he's thinking. And she's taking in what he said.
Another big departure is how they end up in the hands of the Fireflies. I'm so glad that they didn't do it the way they did it in the video game, because that way was so video gamey. It was over the top. Yeah,
it was a lot. I will say I was a little disappointed that they didn't include it being a drowning of some sort, because I think they set that up a little bit with her saying she can't swim. But
I didn't think it was necessary.
It's not super necessary. It just, I always felt like it was such a big part of her character in the games that I guess I'm a little attached to it.
It was a big part of her in the video games because it was tied to the mechanics of the video game.
That's very, very true.
Yeah, it wasn't necessarily like a character.
They didn't put the pallets in there as a little Easter egg. When Joel steps on them to get the ladder.
Yeah.
So,
and they already included the most Last of Us and Uncharted mechanic, which was, I'm going to boost you up to get this ladder.
Right. Yeah.
So yeah.
Yeah, no, it was an interesting change because it leads to her being awake when they take her versus being unconscious the entire time.
The only thing that bothered me about the part where they knocked Joel out is like, I feel they were close enough. I feel that they would have heard them before they threw the smoke bomb. I was like, they've been better than this for most of the season, but whatever. I can forgive it for that.
Yeah, I just thought that was an interesting. It creates an interesting story change, I think, because now Ellie was awake. Like she saw Marlene. She definitely must have seen the doctor and things like that instead of just being unconscious the entire time.
And this also makes, spoiler alert, Joel's lie to her at the end even less believable to her because she was awake. She was awake at least for a little while.
I got the impression that she was much more skeptical in the TV show version than in the game version.
So this going into the hospital, this follows the video game almost to a T.
Yeah, it's pretty spot on. Everything from here on out is near identical to the game.
Let's give a shout out again. Let's give a round of applause to Merle Dandridge, because her performance when she's talking about how she knew how she was best friends with Anna and you know, was the only person that would understand what Joel is going through. Mwah. Chef's kiss. So one more time. Okay. So this follows everything to a T. The biggest departure for me, and a really good and interesting choice, was that Joel entered like a fugue state. He didn't hear anything that was going on. No. He was just in a mode, which is even in the first or second episode, when he beat the Fedra officer or Fedra soldier down, that was an emotion. That was a reaction. This was a comatose man walking through doing what he is known for.
Yeah.
He turns into this beast that doesn't and you don't, even though you're controlling Joel during this time in the video game, you didn't necessarily get that sense. He was reacting, and this was very different for me.
Yeah, it was. I liked the way they handled it, and it really showed the weight of what he did. Like, these were just guys stationed that probably didn't even know what was going on at all. Yeah, you know? They didn't know why they were there. They're just part of the Fireflies doing what they think is right.
Right, because the only two people that know the situation other than the doctors
and Marlene
that are in the Fireflies are the two that she told. They didn't radio anybody. They didn't tell anyone else. They were just supposed to lead him out. That's an interesting point, that no one else knows what's going on. They're just kind of doing their job.
Yeah, no, it's I mean, it was cold-blooded murder. So
yes,
yeah,
cold is the exact right word for it.
It was cold. Yeah. So to see that in that way was just so impactful.
It was alarming. It was like a side of Joel that you're like, I don't know if I like this guy. I don't know if I like this. And that was an interesting touch that they put on it. Really quick, I have a personal anecdote about this section of the video game. Perhaps the best bug or glitch, something that happened to me my first or second playthrough of this game. I think it must have been my second, because this was too good. I hid next to a hospital bed, and for some reason the NPCs just never saw me. So I would stealth kill one, drag him down, and hide again, and then another one would come in the exact same area. And dude, the bodies, like, it ended up being like 7 dudes that I killed this way. And I was just like, let's see how far I can go with this. And then I was like, this is stupid. I need to finish this. But it was the best thing, because I'm not a stealth player for the most part. And this was my crowning achievement in video games. It was just me killing folks in a shadowy corner that the NPCs just didn't see.
There you go. You did it.
Good stuff. Another big departure is when he enters the surgery room. In the video game, he stabs the doctor, like, brutally, right? He stabs him in the head or in the neck.
I mean, I did the flamethrower, so.
I mean.
So take that.
I thought there was a cutscene.
No, you kill. That's the thing, is you're forced to kill the doctor yourself. There's no way around it.
You use the flamethrower?
I mean, well, if you consider all the times I've played the game, I've done it multiple ways, but the flamethrower, I think, was my first way I did it.
My God, you're brutal. something I thought was interesting was when he entered the surgery room, he didn't really wait to just shoot the doctor in the head.
Yeah, because I think anyone that's played has kind of hesitated. At least the first time playing through.
However, he leaves the nurses alone.
Yeah.
Which that is part of the video game, isn't it?
I mean, you can kill them if you want.
Oh boy. What did you use to kill them, bro? Did you use a flamethrower?
Maybe. For the record, like the last 3 times I've played it, I've only killed the doctor.
And so again, this plays out exactly like the video game. Joel picks up Ellie, and
although they aren't chasing after him at this point. I thought that was an interesting change, because usually what happens is you pick her up, and then the music swells into that piece that's just really emotional. But here, they played the song while he was doing the shooting, and then he picked her up, and then it just cuts to the elevator.
Yeah,
I thought that was a really interesting way of doing it. Like, instead of seeing him running with her, getting her out of there with people chasing him, it's just like they're pretty much in the clear already. Which is
it strays away from it being like video game mechanics, because it makes it more tense in a video game if you're being chased by folks. Yeah. The choice for them to play music over him shooting people again, I think it was adds to the fugue state of
it did.
Where Joel is in his mind.
No, there's just something about the way they laid the music on top of that entire sequence that just really makes it have this like out of body surreal experience.
Yeah.
Another thing I've kind of noticed that they've been doing is that they've been mirroring all of the scenes throughout the entire series. So like they basically inverted the blocking of all the characters. I don't know if you caught that.
Like mirroring the blocking from the video game to the show? Oh, okay. No, because it's been so long since I played the game.
Yeah. So like in the very last scene where Ellie's talking to Joel above Jackson.
That I did notice, because I do remember that very, very clearly.
Like, it's interesting to see how they've kind of switched that around. Like, instead of being on his left, now she's on his right. So yeah, just really cool to see how they did all of that.
Why do you think that is?
I don't know. It's probably it had to have been an intentional decision, I think, to just show that it's a different adaptation. It's a mirror of the game, quite literally. But it was very intentional. There's no doubt about that. So I think it's cool that they did that.
Joel's explanation to Ellie in the truck, I think is a little bit different.
A touch different. He almost elaborates a little bit too much.
Yes, that was exactly my thought.
And I think it makes Ellie even more suspicious.
Yeah, it's someone when you're telling a lie and it just keeps getting bigger and bigger.
Yeah,
because she might have this question, so let me.
Yeah, because in the game version, he just says they stopped looking for a cure and left it at that. In this show version, he says raiders attacked the hospital and we had to leave. I barely got us out of there. And I'm like, that's a stretch.
Yeah.
That's a lot happening all at once.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
And that was in response to her saying, like, where are my clothes? Right?
Yeah.
Yeah. So it's
snowballing.
Yep, it's snowballing. And that's interesting. It's going to be interesting to see the implications, which we know in part 2, the implications of it. But I think they're going to expand on it more in the show next season.
I do too. Yeah.
His conversation, how freely he's talking about Sarah in the woods with Ellie on the way to Jackson, is something that we see in the video game as well. But there's something so earned. Like this to me, this feels more earned with this Joel in this show than maybe it did in the video games. It hurt because it's like he thinks that everything can go back to normal after this.
I know. Yeah, like you really felt that.
Yeah.
Like now it's not that she's being quiet because of her trauma that she's already gone through. It's now she's quiet because she feels like something's off.
Yeah. She like Ellie is so smart in this show. She's so hyper intelligent and she can smell bullshit from a mile away. So like the fact that Joel thinks that she can't is, you know.
Yep. Yeah, they're really setting up for just this rockiness in season 2.
It was more again, Merle Dandridge is just amazing.
She's
and
great.
it was so brutal.
I love that she reprised her role for this, because I
Mhm.
really can't imagine anyone else in it.
Nobody else.
Not
Yeah.
at all.
Yeah.
So yeah, she nailed it. And it
was
was pretty much word for word.
It wasn't even, and it's still, again, it wasn't even a question for Joel. He's just like, no, you're not gonna live.
No, and it's just like, he's like, you'll just come after her, and that's that. So he really made sure that there were no loose ends.
Yeah, exactly. I'm glad that they ended the way that they ended it, because that was one of my favorite parts of the video game. A nice cut to black on Ellie's face, and let's give a little round of applause again for Bella Ramsey. She played this perfectly. You could tell that she knows. Now that she knows that he's lying, she has to process the betrayal of it. She has to process the hurt of it, and she has to process all of the questions that I'm sure she has rolling around in her brain before she confronts Joel about it.
I think she's going to try real hard to ignore it, but
yes,
she's not going to be able to.
I think as she gets older, it's going to become harder for her. But I think you're right. I think now she has somebody, she doesn't want to lose it. And we won't see the ramifications of the lie for a while.
Because it's also her own fear of ending up alone that is causing her to just buy him at face value.
Yes, exactly.
She, as much as he can't live without her, she can't stand the thought of not having him in her life either.
Oh, really quick, I want to jump back to a line that she says is, "Wherever you go, I'll follow you."
Yeah.
Oh,
good line.
Oh, good line. It's everything that Joel hoped for. It's everything that Ellie wants, and you're like, oh, it's almost there.
Yeah.
I want that.
Such a happy ending, in theory. If things had gone differently.
If things had gone differently, yes, absolutely. Yeah. If everything that Joel had said was the truth.
Yep.
Happy ending.
Exactly. Now, I have an interesting question for you.
Ooh, lay on me.
Ask you. What do you think Anna would have thought of Joel's decision?
Ooh, that's an interesting question. Because you have to weigh her fierceness.
I mean, think about it. This is a woman that already did lie to save her child, too.
Exactly. You gotta wonder if she would have made the same decision as Joel. She fought so fiercely to protect her kid.
Yeah. That's the thing, is I think most parents would. I really do. I think
absolutely.
Most people that are parents that play this game that I know have said, I would do the same thing.
And Marlene is still as close as she was to Anna. She's still one step removed. She didn't grow up. She didn't watch Ellie grow up necessarily.
No. Yeah, as hard as it was for her to make this decision, like, she didn't raise Ellie. She didn't personally know her. This is just the child of her best friend.
Yeah. Marlene has her world is the Fireflies and the work of the Fireflies. Yeah. And so, of course, that will be her priority forever.
Yeah, and she's already a very logical, calculating kind of person herself. Like, she will put others and sacrifice others for her cause.
And she would sacrifice herself in a heartbeat.
She would, yeah.
But that doesn't take into consideration anyone else, really. Like, by having this global perspective, she is able to not think about anybody on a personal level.
Exactly. Yeah. Because she has,
and that's the opposite. She is the polar opposite of Joel.
Exactly. Yeah. And you can even argue that they might have not been able to even make a cure. But Neil Druckmann has confirmed that, yes, had they actually killed her, they would have made a cure. So that puts that, like,
to bed.
Yeah. Like, you're not going to do anything with that theory. Now it's like, okay, so essentially Joel did doom humanity for a cure. Though you could also argue, how would the cure even be used? Would it actually solve anything at this point 20 years later?
Right.
Oh, but that aside, it doesn't change the fact that he made a horrible decision, because he made that decision knowing that he would doom the world. And that's kind of what matters in this situation.
Absolutely. And it was a is a very seeing everything that we have seen from Joel from the episode 1 to here. You know that he was going to make that decision.
Yeah.
This decision makes sense for him. It's the most Joel thing that he could do. So we've gone on a 9-episode journey.
Yes.
We came into this as fans of the video game. We came in to this as fans of these filmmakers. What are your overall thoughts on this show so far this season?
Loved it. Like, they could not have done a more faithful adaptation, in my opinion. I do think it was about as close to perfect as you could get on something like this. Like, I can't think of anything that could have necessarily made it better. I mean, maybe they could have added a couple more episodes. Some people complain about pacing, but I still don't think the pacing was that bad, really.
No, I have zero issues with the pacing because this is just a different medium.
Yeah, it is. That's exactly the point. Of course, it's going to feel short when your version of the story is 16 hours of gameplay to fill it out. But this isn't a video game. This is a TV show. So I think they condensed it absolutely perfectly. A lot of people aren't happy with this. I personally am. And it's that there's kind of a lack of infected throughout the entire show. This game has never been a zombie game to me. That's not why I've liked it. That's not why I've been into it. It's always been about Joel and Ellie and their journey and them as people. And I love that the TV show followed that and made that what it's about. Yes.
The moment, and I've said this throughout this entire podcast, I am a huge fan of Craig Mazin after Chernobyl. I think he's highly intelligent, good decision maker as a showrunner. So the second they announced that he would be the showrunner and it would be written by him and Neil Druckmann, I had complete faith in the show.
Same. Yeah.
And they did not steer me wrong. I think they made really, really smart decisions. This is the best adaptation of a video game I think we've seen. But that's not why I love it. I love it because it's good storytelling.
Yes.
Every edition was worth it. Every edition added to it. This to me enhanced characters that I already love. They enhanced it in a way that was unexpected and completely effective.
Yeah.
And I love them for it.
Yeah, same. Like, there's going into this, I was like, how could they possibly make the story any better? I've always thought, when they announced it, I'm like, they can't change anything to make it better, but they did.
Yeah.
They changed a lot of things that made sections of this game and the story so much stronger. And I love it for that. Like, now we have 2 tellings of this story that's already so good. And they're both very much the same, but I can now love them each in their own way. It's I'm always
they didn't take away from the video game.
Not at all. If anything, it added to it. It's like, it's interchangeable to me. And I'm always going to love the game version first, I think. But I love this TV show version so much. They brought these characters to life in such an amazing way.
I agree. I think my favorite episodes in this series have been the ones with major additions, with major straying from the video game, because you could tell that they understood these characters.
Yeah.
And they just kept making smart choices. And my gripes about this show are small, and that's big for someone like me watching something that I love. You know what
exactly.
I mean? As your friend, this has been a huge game for you, and it's been like formative for you. It's unlocked a lot about you. So this is a huge part of your life.
It is. Like, it's one of the most important pieces of media and entertainment to me on a personal level. I think it means a lot to all the fans of the game to see it handled with such care and so well.
I agree. Well done to every single member of the cast and crew of the show. You did something remarkable.
Boy, did they.
I enjoyed every second of this.
Every second, yeah.
Thank you, guys.
It's perfect.
Yes. So that's it. We don't really, we know that we're going to continue on with this podcast. Our next thing that we're going to be doing is Yellow Jackets.
Season 2.
Season 2?
Yes.
Yes, season 2. We're going to be doing Yellow Jackets, but I don't know if there's going to be anything that is this personal to us, but we're going to try to keep you guys entertained with our shenanigans.
Yep, we're going to keep at it. We're going to pick new content all the time, try to keep this going consistently. But yeah, this was a big one for us. Unless it's like another Star Wars or something, I don't know when the next show rolling around is going to mean like something so much to us. So, but yeah. Well, season 2. So
yes, exactly. Thank you guys. No good.
Gonna be so hyped for that.
Thank you guys so much for sticking with us. And we'll see you guys soon.
Yeah.